Video, I want to cover some updates we made to the called the Service Health dashboard page, really to bring it kind of in line with some of our other kind of listing and browse kind of pages in terms of features and functions. And so one way you can get to that, and this depends a little bit on from one theme to the next, you can get to it from the Get Services information page, or if you have a Service Health widget that's showing outages, degradation information, usually there's a more information option in there. That'll take you to that dashboard page. Now, one of the first things that's kind of been done with this, you will see it's got this kind of navigational kind of panel over here. And there is a user preference you can set to flip it on the left versus the right. You want to orient it on one side or the other. It also is going to support if you have it closed, it'll remember that it's closed. So when I come back to this, it'll stay closed. And you can also remember that it's pinned on this area. Now, one of the big adjustments here too, in addition to these filters, which I'll cover in a moment, is some display options, which are preference-based as well. So one of those, you'll see there's a legend here to show kind of what's these icons, what they mean. I can hide that legend so I don't see that. There's some options here. If I don't want to see this current outage information at the top, I can hide that. If I don't want to see planned outage information, I can hide that. If I don't want to show the dashboard, I can hide that. Now, what the group by category is, you'll see this is kind of grouping these services by this top level category that they belong to. If I turn this off, it's going to in essence flatten this and show all the services kind of in an alphabetical listing, which can be helpful if you're looking at specifically kind of doing a filtered list of my services or services I own. Oftentimes grouping those by category doesn't make a whole lot of sense, so it may make more sense to display those kind of in a flattened list. I'll go and flip it back to kind of what it was here. So then you see some filters, and this is leveraging basically the card options filters that are used on the browse service page. The same filters can be leveraged here. There are some ways to make them show up on the service health page that they don't show up on the browse services page. And let me show you that real quickly. So if we go to card objects, we go to the business services card object. There's filters here. For example, like the notify subscribe, which has this display of none, which means it basically doesn't show up, but there is this additional attribute. You'll see a service underscore status underscore type. So basically this is kind of an override. So if I'm on the service status page, the type to assign this on that page is a switch. So it's basically replacing this display of none with a switch when I'm on the service health page. So again, if I were to go to the Get Services page, you will not see a filter for that on this particular page. So a couple things in the filters. So you will see options to show just my favorites. So if I flag a service as a favorite, that's one way I can filter and just show those services I've kind of basically marked as a favorite. I can filter by catalog, right? I can filter by different categories. Maybe I just want to look at just business applications, maybe business applications and desktop computing as an example. All right, I can clear those. My subscribed services and services I use. One thing I want to highlight here is my subscribed services is basically the ones you opt into for notification. Like for example here, if I notify when resolved, this is basically adding a subscription to this service for any outages to bond trading or degradations to bond trading, I get notified. So that's the subscription, is subscribing to the notifications. Which you will see if you click on the service, there's an option to subscribe kind of on the status tab here. Also, if you were to go to the history page for the outages of this service, say for example here, you'll see an unsubscribe or subscribe from updates there. So that's the subscriptions. And so the my subscribed services is basically these that I flagged as ones I want to subscribe to for notifications. Services I use, however, are basically where I am a registered subscriber to a service offering for that service. Then this is going to show up as those services where I am actively showing as a user of that service, which in this particular environment I don't have anywhere I'm registered as a service user of that service. So a little different than subscriptions, but tied to more of the offerings that are associated with me and my department or my company. And lastly, you'll see a filter for owned by me. So these are ones where I'm listed as the owner. And so one thing I can do at any of these, I can run these different searches, to contain searches, right? Mix and match these, and then save these as a filter. So I can say this is my owned services. And then I have a filter here, right? So if I were to leave and I want to apply this filter, I can just click on that filter. It applies it here. Now another thing that's interesting about this, if I'm elsewhere in the portal and I launch my favorites and filters and I go to my saved filters and the ones that I've saved from the service health page, like my subscribe services, my own services, it's going to remember that I saved this filter as part of that service health page or service dashboard page. So it's going to take me there and apply the filter on that page in that context. The other thing I can do, so just to highlight, so like my subscribe services, these are the ones I'm subscribed to. If I like this as my default of what I want to see, you see an option where I can save this as my default. So now whenever I leave and come back to the service dashboard page, it's going to apply that filter as my starting point. Now obviously I can remove the different filters that are being applied here, widen my list, search for things like hosting as an example, right, see all those together. But it's going to use this as my starting point to see these services. The other thing to highlight is that these filters that I apply here and our apply search here are going to apply to the dashboard part of this page. It's also going to apply to the outages. It's also going to apply if I had active planned outage or planned maintenance kind of displayed. It would apply the filters to those as well. So that covers the updates I wanted to cover on the service health page. Hope this was helpful and you like some of the updates we've made here. Thank you.